स्तरीय मेडिकल सेवाएं उपलब्ध करवा रहे हैं। कोविड संक्रमण के दौरान पीजीआई का एक विशेष केंद्र कोविड मरीजों की देखभाल के लिए स्थापित किया गया। पीजीआई में सालाना लगभग 30 लाख मरीज इलाज के लिए पहुंचते हैं और परिणाम स्वरूप यहाँ हर सेवा के लिए लंबी कतारें हैं। इस परेशानी के निराकरण के लिए केंद्र सरकार ने पीजीआई के 3 सैटेलाइट सेंटर बनाने का निर्णय लिया। ये सेंटर हिमाचल प्रदेश में ऊना, पंजाब में संगरूर और फिरोजपुर में बनाने की योजना बनी। संगरूर में बन रहे पीजीआई सैटेलाइट सेंटर का निर्माण कार्य आखिरी चरणों में है और यहाँ प्राथमिक ओपीडी सेवाएं शुरू हो चुकी हैं। फिरोजपुर में अत्याधुनिक पीजीआई सैटेलाइट सेंटर का निर्माण कार्य जल्द ही शुरू हो रहा है। लगभग 490 करोड़ रुपए की लागत से तैयार इस अस्पताल का निर्माण कार्य 2024 तक पूरा होने का अनुमान है। इस अस्पताल में अत्याधुनिक तकनीकों से किया जाएगा और ये एक प्लैटिनम रेटेड ग्रीन अस्पताल बनेगा। इस अस्पताल में आधुनिक मशीनों से सुसज्जित आईसीयू व ऑपरेशन थिएटर बनाए जाएंगे। पहले चरण में यहाँ ओपीडी के साथ साथ 100 मरीजों के दाखिल होने का प्रावधान होगा। यहाँ पर विभिन्न विशेषज्ञ उच्च स्तरीय निदान व इलाज की सुविधा प्रदान करेंगे। फिरोजपुर में पीजीआई सैटेलाइट सेंटर की स्थापना से बॉर्डर बेल्ट के लोगों को घर के समीप ही विश्व स्तरीय स्वास्थ्य सुविधाएं तथा भारत सरकार की लाभकारी योजनाओं का लाभ मिलेगा। समाज सेवा, जरूरतमंद की देखभाल और लाभकारी शोध के उद्देश्यों को फलीभूत करता भारत के चंडीगढ़ में स्थित है पीजीआई। 277 एकड़ में फैला यह अस्पताल मुख्यतः उत्तर भारत के राज्यों को मेडिकल सेवा प्रदान कर मेडिकल क्षेत्र के लिए नए आदर्श स्थापित कर रहा है। प्रधानमंत्री ने दीक्षांत समारोह में यहाँ खुद कहा था,
मैं पीजीआई से भली भांति परिचित हूँ, बहुत बार यहाँ आया करता था।
उन्होंने ये भी कहा था कि किसी को जिंदा रखने के लिए सारा जीवन खपना पड़ता है। पिछले 60 वर्षों में पीजीआई ने बेमिसाल तरक्की की। यहाँ हर साल करीब 1 लाख मरीज दाखिल होते हैं। देश के सुदूर प्रदेशों से आने वाले मरीजों को पीजीआई में सरकार की सभी लाभकारी योजनाओं जैसे पीएम जय, मुफ्त टीकाकरण, जन औषधि की सस्ती दवाइयाँ और विभिन्न एडवांस सेंटर्स द्वारा इलाज की सुविधा मिलती है। गंभीर रूप से बीमार मरीजों के लिए पीजीआई में बहुत से आईसीयू और एडवांस्ड सेंटर्स हैं, जो आम इंसान को विश्व स्तरीय मेडिकल सेवाएं उपलब्ध करवा रहे हैं। कोविड संक्रमण के दौरान पीजीआई का एक विशेष केंद्र कोविड मरीजों की देखभाल के लिए स्थापित किया गया। पीजीआई में सालाना लगभग 30 लाख मरीज इलाज के लिए पहुंचते हैं और परिणाम स्वरूप यहाँ हर सेवा के लिए लंबी कतारें हैं। इस परेशानी के निराकरण के लिए केंद्र सरकार ने पीजीआई के 3 सैटेलाइट सेंटर बनाने का निर्णय लिया। ये सेंटर हिमाचल प्रदेश में ऊना, पंजाब में संगरूर और फिरोजपुर में बनाने की योजना बनी। संगरूर में बन रहे पीजीआई सैटेलाइट सेंटर का निर्माण कार्य आखिरी चरणों में है और यहाँ प्राथमिक ओपीडी सेवाएं शुरू हो चुकी हैं। फिरोजपुर में अत्याधुनिक पीजीआई सैटेलाइट सेंटर का निर्माण कार्य जल्द ही शुरू हो रहा है। लगभग 490 करोड़ रुपए की लागत से तैयार इस अस्पताल का निर्माण कार्य 2024 तक पूरा होने का अनुमान है। इस अस्पताल का निर्माण अत्याधुनिक तकनीकों से किया जाएगा और ये एक प्लैटिनम रेटेड ग्रीन अस्पताल बनेगा। इस अस्पताल में आधुनिक मशीनों से सुसज्जित आईसीयू व ऑपरेशन थिएटर बनाए जाएंगे। पहले चरण में यहाँ ओपीडी के साथ साथ 100 मरीजों के दाखिल होने का प्रावधान होगा। यहाँ पर विभिन्न विशेषज्ञ उच्च स्तरीय निदान व इलाज की सुविधा प्रदान करेंगे। फिरोजपुर में पीजीआई सैटेलाइट सेंटर की स्थापना से बॉर्डर बेल्ट के लोगों को घर के समीप ही विश्व स्तरीय स्वास्थ्य सुविधाएं तथा भारत सरकार की लाभकारी योजनाओं का लाभ मिलेगा। समाज सेवा, जरूरतमंद की देखभाल और लाभकारी शोध के उद्देश्यों को फलीभूत करता भारत के चंडीगढ़ में स्थित है पीजीआई। 277 एकड़ में फैला ये अस्पताल मुख्यतः उत्तर भारत के राज्यों को मेडिकल सेवा प्रदान कर मेडिकल क्षेत्र के लिए नए आदर्श स्थापित कर रहा है। प्रधानमंत्री ने दीक्षांत समारोह में यहाँ खुद कहा था,
मैं पीजीआई से भली भांति परिचित हूँ, बहुत बार यहाँ आया करता था।
उन्होंने ये भी कहा था कि किसी को जिंदा रखने के लिए सारा जीवन खपना पड़ता है। पिछले 60 वर्षों में पीजीआई ने बेमिसाल तरक्की की। यहाँ हर साल करीब 1 लाख मरीज दाखिल होते हैं। देश के सुदूर प्रदेशों से आने वाले मरीजों को पीजीआई में सरकार की सभी लाभकारी योजनाओं जैसे पीएम जय, मुफ्त टीकाकरण, जन औषधि की सस्ती दवाइयाँ और विभिन्न एडवांस सेंटर्स द्वारा इलाज की सुविधा मिलती है। गंभीर रूप से बीमार मरीजों के लिए पीजीआई में बहुत से आईसीयू और एडवांस्ड सेंटर्स हैं, जो आम इंसान को विश्व स्तरीय मेडिकल सेवाएं उपलब्ध करवा रहे हैं। कोविड संक्रमण के दौरान पीजीआई का एक विशेष केंद्र कोविड मरीजों की देखभाल के लिए स्थापित किया गया। पीजीआई में सालाना लगभग 30 लाख मरीज इलाज के लिए पहुंचते हैं और परिणाम स्वरूप यहाँ हर सेवा के लिए लंबी कतारें हैं। इस परेशानी के निराकरण के लिए केंद्र सरकार ने पीजीआई के 3 सैटेलाइट सेंटर बनाने का निर्णय लिया। ये सेंटर हिमाचल प्रदेश में ऊना, पंजाब में संगरूर और फिरोजपुर में बनाने की योजना बनी। संगरूर में बन रहे पीजीआई सैटेलाइट सेंटर का निर्माण कार्य आखिरी चरणों में है और यहाँ प्राथमिक ओपीडी सेवाएं शुरू हो चुकी हैं। फिरोजपुर में अत्याधुनिक पीजीआई सैटेलाइट सेंटर का निर्माण कार्य जल्द ही शुरू हो रहा है। लगभग 490 करोड़ रुपए की लागत से तैयार इस अस्पताल का निर्माण कार्य 2024 तक पूरा होने का अनुमान है। इस अस्पताल का निर्माण अत्याधुनिक तकनीकों से किया जाएगा और ये एक प्लैटिनम रेटेड ग्रीन अस्पताल बनेगा। इस अस्पताल में आधुनिक मशीनों से सुसज्जित आईसीयू व ऑपरेशन थिएटर बनाए जाएंगे। पहले चरण में यहाँ ओपीडी के साथ साथ 100 मरीजों के दाखिल होने का प्रावधान होगा। यहाँ पर विभिन्न विशेषज्ञ उच्च स्तरीय निदान व इलाज की सुविधा प्रदान करेंगे। फिरोजपुर में पीजीआई सैटेलाइट सेंटर की स्थापना से बॉर्डर बेल्ट के लोगों को घर के समीप ही विश्व स्तरीय स्वास्थ्य सुविधाएं तथा भारत सरकार की लाभकारी योजनाओं का लाभ मिलेगा। समाज सेवा, जरूरतमंद की देखभाल और लाभकारी शोध के उद्देश्यों को फलीभूत करता भारत के चंडीगढ़ में स्थित है पीजीआई। 277 एकड़ में फैला यह अस्पताल मुख्यतः उत्तर भारत के राज्यों को मेडिकल सेवा प्रदान कर मेडिकल क्षेत्र के लिए नए आदर्श स्थापित कर रहा है। प्रधानमंत्री ने दीक्षांत समारोह में यहाँ खुद कहा था,
मैं पीजीआई से भली भांति परिचित हूँ, बहुत बार यहाँ आया करता था।
उन्होंने ये भी कहा था कि किसी को जिंदा रखने के लिए सारा जीवन खपना पड़ता है। पिछले 60 वर्षों में पीजीआई ने बेमिसाल तरक्की की। यहाँ हर साल करीब 1 लाख मरीज दाखिल होते हैं। देश के सुदूर प्रदेशों से आने वाले मरीजों को पीजीआई में सरकार की सभी लाभकारी योजनाओं जैसे पीएम जय, मुफ्त टीकाकरण, जन औषधि की सस्ती दवाइयाँ और विभिन्न एडवांस सेंटर्स द्वारा इलाज की सुविधा मिलती है। गंभीर रूप से बीमार मरीजों के लिए पीजीआई में बहुत से आईसीयू और एडवांस्ड सेंटर्स हैं, जो आम इंसान को विश्व स्तरीय मेडिकल सेवाएं उपलब्ध करवा रहे हैं। कोविड संक्रमण के दौरान पीजीआई का एक विशेष केंद्र कोविड मरीजों की देखभाल के लिए स्थापित किया गया। पीजीआई में सालाना लगभग 30 लाख मरीज इलाज के लिए पहुंचते हैं और परिणाम स्वरूप यहाँ हर सेवा के लिए लंबी कतारें हैं। इस परेशानी के निराकरण के लिए केंद्र सरकार ने पीजीआई के 3 सैटेलाइट सेंटर बनाने का निर्णय लिया। ये सेंटर हिमाचल प्रदेश में ऊना, पंजाब में संगरूर और फिरोजपुर में बनाने की योजना बनी। संगरूर में बन रहे पीजीआई सैटेलाइट सेंटर का निर्माण कार्य आखिरी चरणों में है और यहाँ प्राथमिक ओपीडी सेवाएं शुरू हो चुकी हैं। फिरोजपुर में अत्याधुनिक पीजीआई सैटेलाइट सेंटर का निर्माण कार्य जल्द ही शुरू हो रहा है। लगभग 490 करोड़ रुपए की लागत से तैयार इस अस्पताल का निर्माण कार्य 2024 तक पूरा होने का अनुमान है। इस अस्पताल का निर्माण अत्याधुनिक तकनीकों से किया जाएगा और ये एक प्लैटिनम रेटेड ग्रीन अस्पताल बनेगा। इस अस्पताल में आधुनिक मशीनों से सुसज्जित आईसीयू व ऑपरेशन थिएटर बनाए जाएंगे। पहले चरण में यहाँ ओपीडी के साथ साथ 100 मरीजों के दाखिल होने का प्रावधान होगा। यहाँ पर विभिन्न विशेषज्ञ उच्च स्तरीय निदान व इलाज की सुविधा प्रदान करेंगे। फिरोजपुर में पीजीआई सैटेलाइट सेंटर की स्थापना से बॉर्डर बेल्ट के लोगों को घर के समीप ही विश्व स्तरीय स्वास्थ्य सुविधाएं तथा भारत सरकार की लाभकारी योजनाओं का लाभ मिलेगा। समाज सेवा, जरूरतमंद की देखभाल और लाभकारी शोध के उद्देश्यों को फलीभूत करता भारत के चंडीगढ़ में स्थित है पीजीआई। 277 एकड़ में फैला यह अस्पताल मुख्यतः उत्तर भारत के राज्यों को मेडिकल सेवा प्रदान कर मेडिकल क्षेत्र के लिए नए आदर्श स्थापित कर रहा है। प्रधानमंत्री ने दीक्षांत समारोह में यहाँ खुद कहा था,
मैं पीजीआई से भली भांति परिचित हूँ, बहुत बार यहाँ आया करता था।
उन्होंने ये भी कहा था कि किसी को जिंदा रखने के लिए सारा जीवन खपना पड़ता है। पिछले 60 वर्षों में पीजीआई ने बेमिसाल तरक्की की। यहाँ हर साल करीब 1 लाख मरीज दाखिल होते हैं। देश के सुदूर प्रदेशों से आने वाले मरीजों को पीजीआई में सरकार की सभी लाभकारी योजनाओं जैसे पीएम जय, मुफ्त टीकाकरण, जन औषधि की सस्ती दवाइयाँ और विभिन्न एडवांस सेंटर्स द्वारा इलाज की सुविधा मिलती है। गंभीर रूप से बीमार मरीजों के लिए पीजीआई में बहुत से आईसीयू और एडवांस्ड सेंटर्स हैं, जो आम इंसान को विश्व स्तरीय मेडिकल सेवाएं उपलब्ध करवा रहे हैं। कोविड संक्रमण के दौरान पीजीआई का एक विशेष केंद्र कोविड मरीजों की देखभाल के लिए स्थापित किया गया। पीजीआई में सालाना लगभग 30 लाख मरीज इलाज के लिए पहुंचते हैं और परिणाम स्वरूप यहाँ हर सेवा के लिए लंबी कतारें हैं। इस परेशानी के निराकरण के लिए केंद्र सरकार ने पीजीआई के 3 सैटेलाइट सेंटर बनाने का निर्णय लिया। ये सेंटर हिमाचल प्रदेश में ऊना, पंजाब में संगरूर और फिरोजपुर में बनाने की योजना बनी। संगरूर में बन रहे पीजीआई सैटेलाइट सेंटर का निर्माण कार्य आखिरी चरणों में है और यहाँ प्राथमिक ओपीडी सेवाएं शुरू हो चुकी हैं। फिरोजपुर में अत्याधुनिक पीजीआई सैटेलाइट सेंटर का निर्माण कार्य जल्द ही शुरू हो रहा है। लगभग 490 करोड़ रुपए की लागत से तैयार इस अस्पताल का निर्माण कार्य 2024 तक पूरा होने का अनुमान है। इस अस्पताल का निर्माण अत्याधुनिक तकनीकों से किया जाएगा और ये एक प्लैटिनम रेटेड ग्रीन अस्पताल बनेगा। इस अस्पताल में आधुनिक मशीनों से सुसज्जित आईसीयू व ऑपरेशन थिएटर बनाए जाएंगे। पहले चरण में यहाँ ओपीडी के साथ साथ 100 मरीजों के दाखिल होने का प्रावधान होगा। यहाँ पर विभिन्न विशेषज्ञ उच्च स्तरीय निदान व इलाज की सुविधा प्रदान करेंगे। फिरोजपुर में पीजीआई सैटेलाइट सेंटर की स्थापना से बॉर्डर बेल्ट के लोगों को घर के समीप ही विश्व स्तरीय स्वास्थ्य सुविधाएं तथा भारत सरकार की लाभकारी योजनाओं का लाभ मिलेगा। समाज सेवा, जरूरतमंद की देखभाल और लाभकारी शोध के उद्देश्यों को फलीभूत करता भारत के चंडीगढ़ में स्थित है पीजीआई। 277 एकड़ में फैला यह अस्पताल मुख्यतः उत्तर भारत के राज्यों को मेडिकल सेवा प्रदान कर मेडिकल क्षेत्र के लिए नए आदर्श स्थापित कर रहा है। प्रधानमंत्री ने दीक्षांत समारोह में यहाँ खुद कहा था,
मैं पीजीआई से भली भांति परिचित हूँ, बहुत बार यहाँ आया करता था।
उन्होंने ये भी कहा था कि किसी को जिंदा रखने के लिए सारा जीवन खपना पड़ता है। पिछले 60 वर्षों में पीजीआई ने बेमिसाल तरक्की की। यहाँ हर साल करीब 1 लाख मरीज दाखिल होते हैं। देश के सुदूर प्रदेशों से आने वाले मरीजों को पीजीआई में सरकार की सभी लाभकारी योजनाओं जैसे पीएम जय, मुफ्त टीकाकरण, जन औषधि की सस्ती दवाइयाँ और विभिन्न एडवांस सेंटर्स द्वारा इलाज की सुविधा मिलती है। गंभीर रूप से बीमार मरीजों के लिए पीजीआई में बहुत से आईसीयू और एडवांस्ड सेंटर्स हैं, जो आम इंसान को विश्व स्तरीय मेडिकल सेवाएं उपलब्ध करवा रहे हैं। कोविड संक्रमण के दौरान पीजीआई का एक विशेष केंद्र कोविड मरीजों की देखभाल के लिए स्थापित किया गया। पीजीआई में सालाना लगभग 30 लाख मरीज इलाज के लिए पहुंचते हैं और परिणाम स्वरूप यहाँ हर सेवा के लिए लंबी कतारें हैं। इस परेशानी के निराकरण के लिए केंद्र सरकार ने पीजीआई के 3 सैटेलाइट सेंटर बनाने का निर्णय लिया। ये सेंटर हिमाचल प्रदेश में ऊना, पंजाब में संगरूर और फिरोजपुर में बनाने की योजना बनी। संगरूर में बन रहे पीजीआई सैटेलाइट सेंटर का निर्माण कार्य आखिरी चरणों में है और यहाँ प्राथमिक ओपीडी सेवाएं शुरू हो चुकी हैं। फिरोजपुर में अत्याधुनिक पीजीआई सैटेलाइट सेंटर का निर्माण कार्य जल्द ही शुरू हो रहा है। लगभग 490 करोड़ रुपए की लागत से तैयार इस अस्पताल का निर्माण कार्य 2024 तक पूरा होने का अनुमान है। इस अस्पताल का निर्माण अत्याधुनिक तकनीकों से किया जाएगा और ये एक प्लैटिनम रेटेड ग्रीन अस्पताल बनेगा। इस अस्पताल में आधुनिक मशीनों से सुसज्जित आईसीयू व ऑपरेशन थिएटर बनाए जाएंगे। पहले चरण में यहाँ ओपीडी के साथ साथ 100 मरीजों के दाखिल होने का प्रावधान होगा। यहाँ पर विभिन्न विशेषज्ञ उच्च स्तरीय निदान व इलाज की सुविधा प्रदान करेंगे। फिरोजपुर में पीजीआई सैटेलाइट सेंटर की स्थापना से बॉर्डर बेल्ट के लोगों को घर के समीप ही विश्व स्तरीय स्वास्थ्य सुविधाएं तथा भारत सरकार की लाभकारी योजनाओं का लाभ मिलेगा। समाज सेवा, जरूरतमंद की देखभाल और लाभकारी शोध के उद्देश्यों को फलीभूत करता भारत के चंडीगढ़ में स्थित है पीजीआई। 277 एकड़ में फैला यह अस्पताल मुख्यतः उत्तर भारत के राज्यों को मेडिकल सेवा प्रदान कर मेडिकल क्षेत्र के लिए नए आदर्श स्थापित कर रहा है। प्रधानमंत्री ने दीक्षांत समारोह में यहाँ खुद कहा था,
मैं पीजीआई से भली भांति परिचित हूँ, बहुत बार यहाँ आया करता था।
उन्होंने ये भी कहा था कि किसी को जिंदा रखने के लिए सारा जीवन खपना पड़ता है। पिछले 60 वर्षों में पीजीआई ने बेमिसाल तरक्की की। यहाँ हर साल करीब 1 लाख मरीज दाखिल होते हैं। देश के सुदूर प्रदेशों
A very warm welcome to the esteemed dignitaries, respected colleagues, and dear students. As we gather here to mark the commencement of the new academic session, we reflect on the rich legacy of PGI since its inception in 1962. Our institution stands committed to providing service to the community, care to the needy, and advancing research for the good of all. Guided by the mantra, Aaj Seva Sarbhadra Sudhascha, we embark on a journey of knowledge and self-realization. I humbly request the dignitaries on the dais to join us for the auspicious lamp lighting ceremony, invoking the blessings of Ma Saraswati, the goddess of wisdom, to dispel ignorance and illuminate our path. With immense pride, we now offer a glimpse of the deep affection and reverence we hold for our alma mater. It is time to cherish our PGI anthem, dedicated to one and all, associated with this premier institute of national importance.
आशाएं जीने की मन में जगाए, असीम ज्ञान की धारा बहाए। आशाएं जीने की मन में जगाए, असीम ज्ञान की धारा बहाए। शिक्षा विज्ञान और स्वास्थ्य का ये सेवा संस्थान हमारा।
दीक्षा भी है यहाँ, शोध भी, कर्तव्य का है बोध भी। से आए हुए हैं हम सभी। हर शख्स यहाँ जो आया है उसे रोग मुक्त कराया है। जीवन यहाँ अनमोल है, सभी की आस संजोया है, सभी की आस संजोया है। विश्व कल्याण सर्वमंगलम उद्देश्य है हमारा, संकल्प है संस्थान का, लहराएंगे ये परचम। हम हैं पीजीआई चंडीगढ़, हम हैं पीजीआई चंडीगढ़, हम हैं पीजीआई चंडीगढ़, हम हैं पीजीआई चंडीगढ़। आर्थ सेवा सर्वपक्षेषु आर्थ सेवा सर्वपक्षेषु आर्थ सेवा सर्वपक्षेषु आर्थ सेवा सर्वपक्षेषु।
I now request Director PGI, Professor Vivek Lal, to welcome the August gathering. Sir, please.
Professor Nageshwar Reddy, Honorable Padma Bhushan awardee, former directors, my teachers, my colleagues, and my beloved students. Of all the days that we celebrate in PGI, this probably is the most sacred day. Let me tell you that. And the reason is very simple. The academics in PGI are easily amongst the very best in the world. For that, I give credit to the founding fathers of PGI, who put PGI on a trajectory that is still shaping northwards. So as happens always, I had to decide whom do I call for the inauguration of this function. और जो मेरी रडार की सुई है वो सीधा AIG के प्रोफेसर नागेश्वर रेड्डी पे पड़ी. I kind of just picked up the phone and talked to him. I didn't hold a meeting. It just came spontaneously to me that it is time that we honored a towering alumnus of PGI, Professor Nageshwar Reddy. I request you to give him a big round of applause. Whatever time that I have spent with this iconic figure has humbled me no end, has given me a very deep sense of pride as a PGite, which was always there, but now it is 2 inches more. I feel 2 inches taller than I was before I met him yesterday. And I can tell my residents who are sitting in this hall, the future of this nation, that you are just the luckiest residents on earth to have come to this institution. लोग बड़ी बातें बहुत करते हैं, मैं यहाँ गया, मैं वहाँ गया, मैं यहाँ और वहाँ गया. That's human to drop names. That's human to, be kind of carried away by glitz and glamour. PGI is pure gravitas. It is 24 karat gravitas, let me tell you that. If ever there was an academic institution that has been like Nalanda and Takshashila of yore, if you know what I am referring to, then it is PGI Chandigarh. To give you a very simple example, we have 3 CPCs a week. We have 2 resident and 1 staff CPC. The sister institutions of PGI across India have won in 3 months. And I am privileged to state that I once had the honor of talking to one of the greatest pathologists the world has ever seen, who made this statement that there are more CPCs in PGI in 1 year than the entire world put together. That is how PGI stands tall. That is what PGI stands for. Compassion, commitment, service, and a spin-off of that is academics. Compassion, commitment, service. And as a spin-off of all this comes academics. Our academics is patient friendly. अगर आपकी academics patient friendly नहीं होएगी ना, तो वो कागज का फूल होगा. कागज के फूल से कभी खुशबू नहीं आती, चाहे जितना मर्जी उसका साइज हो. But if academics is patient friendly, चाहे जितना मर्जी छोटा वो फूल हो, उससे खुशबू जरूर आती है. And that is what I encourage my students to do. It should be for the patients, by the patients, with the patients. And an epitome of all that is our chief guest for today. He remembers PGI like the back of his hand. वो ये कैंटीन में होता था, वो ये स्टोर कीपर होता था. I have forgotten all. I am 20 years junior to him. I have forgotten all, but he remembers everything. He did his residency in 81, 82, am I right? That was a 2-year residency at that time. And he was very fondly talking of the politics also of PGI. And he was also, besides talking of the politics of PGI, he made a very deep statement that politics never affected the learning of residents. That politics did not fall on residents. That politics only was limited to interpersonal rivalry, but it never came down on residents, and so residents flowered, residents flourished. He took 2 great names, both of whom are legendary consultants in the world today. Both are in Mayo, Professor Patrick Kamath and Shanti Swaroop. And I was pleasantly surprised to know that the MELT score has been given by Patrick Kamath, you were telling me. Now we all know what it means for transplantation surgeons. And he was telling me how that MELT score came around. You just think of what I am saying. Here is a PGite, left the shores of this country, joined probably the most iconic of iconic institutes, is still roaring as an academician, and has given the world a new scoring system. There are many such examples. Professor Tulsi Das, Professor Santokh Singh Anand, Professor P.N. Chotani, Professor P.L. Wahi, Professor Walia, Professor Talwar, Professor Jagat Ram, Professor Yogesh Chawla. Each and every director of the past is an iconic, standalone colossus in his field. And that's because they have rolled in the mud of PGI. ये धरती बहुत बलवान है. That's what I tell you, students. ये एक धाम है. इस धाम की कदर करो. This dham will give you more than what you can ever imagine, what you can ever expect. With that, Professor Nageshwar sir, Nagi Reddy would be okay with you, sir. Nagi, welcome to PGI. Welcome to your alma mater. Welcome home. Thank you. Jai Hind.
Thank you, sir, for your unwavering support. The pinning ceremony, a tradition dating back to the 12th century, symbolizes the welcome of freshly recruited graduates into the professional stream. May I request Professor Naresh Panda, Dean Academics, to kindly conduct the pinning ceremony for July 2023 and January 2024 batches.
Good morning. May I request all the newly joined residents who joined in July 2023 and January 2024 to kindly stand up, please. I would be honored to administer this oath to you. You just look at here, please don't repeat. On behalf of the Institute, I charge you to make yourself a trustworthy physician who will practice medicine with excellence, integrity, and devotion to your patients. I commit you to a life that will bring honor to the profession and the Institute. With this, you are inducted into the highest tradition of academic excellence that this Institute stands for. After this, you have been provided with the pen. Kindly pin up on your aprons. Welcome to this great institution. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Panda. I feel honored to take this opportunity to invite our esteemed chief guest, Dr. D. Nageshwar Reddy, a distinguished gastroenterologist who stands as a beacon of excellence in the field of medicine. Educated at Kurnool Medical College, Dr. Reddy has dedicated his life to the advancement of healthcare and medical research. As the chairman and founder of the Asian Institute of Gastroenterology, Dr. Reddy has played a pivotal role in shaping the landscape of gastroenterology in India. His visionary leadership has not only led to the establishment of a renowned medical institution, but has also contributed significantly to the enhancement of gastroenterological services across the country. Dr. Reddy's accolades extend beyond his institutional achievements. A Padma Shri as well as Padma Bhushan awardee, he has been recognized for his outstanding contributions to medicine and healthcare. The prestigious Dr. B.C. Roy Award, conferred by the Medical Council of India, further attests to his remarkable achievements. In addition to his professional accomplishments, Dr. Reddy's journey serves as an inspiration for aspiring medical professionals. His resilience in the face of challenges and his ability to turn adversity into motivation exemplify the spirit of perseverance and determination. His journey not only symbolizes medical excellence, but also embodies the values of compassion, dedication, and a relentless pursuit of knowledge. Sir, we are honored to have you here today. Please address our inquisitive audience. Welcome.
Yeah.
Good morning, everybody. At the outset, I'm extremely thankful to the director of PGI, Professor Vivek Lal, for giving me this opportunity to be a part of this function. I'm also truly humbled by the presence of many of my teachers, professors, colleagues who are here, brings back fond memories of what happened at PGI. I think one of the greatest events that can occur in your life is to be recognized by your alma mater. This is a greater recognition than that can occur with any honors that you get. Yeah. And to those who have just entered PGI, the hallowed walls of PGI, let me tell you this, to the residents and postgraduates, you're extremely privileged. Privileged because you enter into training into one of the best institutions in the world. I tell this from my bottom of heart because after 40 years of having gone through so many institutions all over the world. I didn't realize this when I came to PGI, but I realize it now, that this is certainly one of the best institutes in the world to get trained. So what I'm going to do briefly is to first tell you about my journey, what happened during and after PGI, hopefully not sounding arrogant or boastful, and then tell you about what I learned, what benefited me from PGI, and again, really truthfully tell you about what I didn't learn or should have learned when I got prepared for the outer world as we went through. So, I was in gastroenterology in PGI, passed out in 1984. You can see it was long back because I had a lot of hair on my head there. That was with my wife, who was a dermatologist, who also worked at the dermatology department here. Those few years in PGI actually shaped subsequently what happened. I know every person who's successful from PGI, and there are many, will tell you this, that what happened ultimately in life was actually shaped by what happened in those few years that we had training at PGI. And this is really true. And I think this is what you as a new residents have to expect. Prepare yourself. You're already successful. Getting into PGI itself is a big success. But I think what lays further ahead, you can make the best use of it training here. So after my stint at PGI, I was greatly influenced by Professor Jang Bahadur Dilawri, who is fortunately here today, to take up endoscopy as a passion, to take up endoscopy as a career. In 1984, when it was still not very fashionable to do that. Endoscopists were considered technicians and not academicians and so on. But I think Jung influenced me a lot into going into this area, and that's what I did. I actually wanted to stay back at PGI, but unfortunately, as it's always there, it's a limited number of seats. Very few consultants can come back and join. And therefore went back to my native place, Hyderabad, and joined the Nizam's Institute of Medical Sciences. And you can see that at that time, again, tried to develop a department of gastroenterology with endoscopy. Endoscopes were very primitive then, and you can see that we're using a fiber optic endoscopy here. And of course, this was actually the governor of our state, Mrs. Joshi, whose husband had a GI bleed. I was endoscoping him and trying to show her the bleeding ulcer. I'm not sure she saw that, but anyway, that's how we used to function at that time. This was a fiber optic endoscopy. I tried to develop gastroenterology there, but in a state government service, it can be quite frustrating. You don't get equipment, and gastroenterology then was very technology progressive and dependent. I realized that if I stayed back, I wouldn't have a long future because of what's happening in terms of getting infrastructure which was suitable for the rapid developments that are occurring. So I went into practice. I was practicing, I started my practice as a solo practitioner here with 2 small endoscopy rooms, again, concentrating on therapeutic endoscopy. And because at that point of time, I was one of the few therapeutic endoscopists in southern part of our country, my practice became huge. It was a very large practice. You can see still that we started developing new technologies, new equipment came in. I still had a lot of hair. Unfortunately, the photographer cut it off, but I still was full of at that point of time. And my practice, as I said, developed to a very large extent. This is what happened. The OP rooms were very full, and I started making a lot of money, taking back bags of money home. I thought my life is done, I'm happy. But then one day, my dad, who was a pathologist, so was a very academic pathologist, published huge number of papers, was the vice chancellor of the university, retired, called me and told me, son, I'm extremely disappointed with you. I'm ashamed of you, he said. He used these words. I said, why? I mean, I trained in the best institution in the world. I'm come here, I'm a successful practitioner, I'm making a lot of money. He said, you're making a lot of money for yourself. You're selfish. What have you done for the society? Have you trained anybody? Have you published anything which I hadn't done at that time? Have you built any institutions to be left for future? I said no to all of this. And he said, this is very disappointing. At that moment, actually my life changed. I realized that what I was doing was so self-driven, so selfish that all I'm doing was to, for a few years, maybe gratify myself and then fade out. I called others who worked with me, like Dr. G.B. Rao, and together we decided, okay, let's give up practice and start thinking of building an institution, getting into an institutional mode of salary and so on. It was difficult because although I made good amount of money, it was not enough to build a big institution. And something fortunate happened at that time. And this is, I'm telling you, because in life you get opportunities, there's serendipity, luck that comes in, and it's important to grab all this. At 11 o'clock in the night, the neighboring chief minister, state chief minister, called me saying, I'm so-and-so, my wife is quite serious. She had a laparoscopic cholecystectomy. The stone has slipped into the CBD, and attempts to remove it were not possible. He told me, I believe you're the only one nearby who can do an ERCP and remove this. Can you come? So he sent his private plane. I went there at 1 o'clock in the night, and I found that this wife of the chief minister was panting, septic shock, no recover, no BP and pulse are not recordable, and she was about to die probably in a few hours or minutes. So when I went into the hospital, the private hospital was surrounded by about 2,000 political gundas. So the first thing I asked when I went inside was, where is the rear exit? Because something happens, I can go out from that. So I went inside, we wheeled her into the fluoroscopy room, only one that was available, and fortunately it was a impacted stone and we could remove it easily. Within 4 hours, this patient, his wife recovered so dramatically that when he came at 6 o'clock in the morning, she's sitting up eating breakfast. So this CM said, no, what is that? I mean, this is something remarkable. Why don't you come to our state, set up this gastro centers? And I said, no, I can't come to your state, but can you help me with something in our state in Hyderabad? He said, okay. And we are very fortunate that one of his chelas had this building, which was donated to us, in fact. So this is how the Asian Institute of Gastroenterology, the old one, started. It was a 200-bedded hospital only devoted to gastroenterology, with mottos of clinical service, research and training as we started first. At that point of time, I was told by many people, are you foolish? Gastroenterology doesn't deserve a single hospital. Cardiology okay, oncology okay, not gastroenterology. Maybe some of it you should lease out to other departments and so on. But they said, no, let's try. Fortunately for us, we got a very committed team of people to join us at that point of time. And we not only concentrated on therapeutic endoscopy, but started building up hepatology, pancreatology, and minimally invasive surgery, with a little emphasis on research. So what we did was, for the next few years in early 2000, is to try and get whatever best was available in the market, because we are freed from the capital of trying to make buildings and so on. So all that we could make went into getting what was the latest technology available at that point of time, and therefore, again, our practices grew. And you can see the hospital again became extremely busy. The 200 beds were overfilled, people were waiting for occupation and so on. And another second accident of luck occurred to me at that point of time, about 2000. Late 2000s, when the chief minister of our state at that time was trying to come for consultation for gastroenterology. He didn't come with his security and so on. He just walked in and he found this crowd, and the crowd didn't allow him to go in, saying that they are waiting in the queue, he better wait for some more time. So he said, oh, this is, I mean, very unusual. What are you people doing here? Why don't I give you, the government give you a large piece of land and make the best hospital in the world? I said, I don't know about the best hospital, but my passion is endoscopy, so we'll make the best endoscopy unit in the world. So he gave us this land, which was a huge piece of land, 10 acres of land right in center of the city. And we started building this. It took us 4 hours, breaking the rock and so on. And you can see that as the hospital came up, the surroundings also improved. A new city actually sprouted around the hospital. This was 10 acres of land. So as we did this, as we built, you can see the two components of the building coming up, the surrounding, which is becoming like a very new type of landscaping that came in. This was the new city of Hyderabad called Gachibowli, and this is where a hospital came. And you can see we had 2 blocks, a research block, and then we had, my dream was to build the biggest endoscopy unit, and that's what we did. We built the world's largest endoscopy unit in that area. This was 1,000 bedded hospital. And what we did also was that we built up a big research block. 30% of the space was given to research and skill training. We decided that we have to have skill training because skill labs, endoscopy is becoming more and more sophisticated. We require hands-on training, and we wanted to build a skill lab. And this was, probably one of the few private hospitals, a small and a large animal lab. And we have used this for a lot of training that happens in the animal labs. We also became very interested in transmitting these images, in being part of broadcasting these endoscopic techniques too, and some of, at least my colleagues who have been there, have seen this. We also decided that a part of a hospital, again based upon the experience with PGI, at PGI decided that translational research was extremely important. So we built this large translational research center in the hospital, which was catering to the hospital. And also a very important aspect of medicine that we often forget when we get into a private sector is what happens to rural population, they're neglected. So fortunately for us, we could gather donations for this, and we started this large rural health project where we now adapted over 40 villages with rural centers where patients are treated free of cost with these rural vans that go there. And of course, we do all endoscopies which are transmitted to a main hospital. And this whole project is funded by philanthropic donations that come to us. So this was a third aspect of what we did. And again, I think this partly, I owe everything to PGI. Now, how did we do this? We are not as rich initially to do this, but you can see that we had a lot of funding partners. Most of our research was funded by ICMR and DBT. Again, it's a false notion that ICMR and DBT will only fund government institutions. They fund a lot of private institutions. It's a way of getting these grants. And for those of you who finish your training and are going into private sector, remember, you can get a lot of research grants from these institutions, provided they're written well and you have the proper networking to get this. We also had a lot of funding from private sector. In fact, 1/3 of our funds for the hospital came from private sector, because Hyderabad at that point of time was developing into a very big software technology unit. And one of the biggest donors for these types of projects are those who become suddenly rich, because those who are already rich don't want to part with the money. But when we become suddenly rich, they're okay with giving this money to. So we had a lot of help from these things, and that's how this was built. So in 2022, we achieved what our CM wanted many years back. The Newsweek magazine labeled us as one of the best hospitals in the world. So it was a serendipity that actually helped us. The CM started practice in a very crude way, making a lot of money, but I was told that this was wrong, and then how it was influenced by what my father said. Fortunately, going to another city with the CM's wife, you could get this old hospital, which you can see here. The whole hospital was too crowded, and probably we would have continued that way till we got this new place, and now we have I'm very proud of this new place, which is a combination of patient care, academics, and research, and of course, a large amount contributing to rural health that we have. I think this is very true what Vincent Goh has said, that great things are done not by impulse, but by a series of small things that came together. We did small things together, and ultimately, we could come up with this big project. So at that point of time, I started getting more interested in the world community of gastrointestinal endoscopy. And one thing, again, I'd like to emphasize, I visited as the president of WHO over 50 big institutions in the world. And what was striking is that the best training in the world is here at PGI. Not the Harvards, not the Stanfords, and not the MITs, but this is the best. And also, the best residents in the world are from PGI. This is something I'm extremely proud of. So finally came this movement. I think what all work I did at PGI was this: when I became the president of the World Endoscopy Organization. Just imagine the president of the American Association, the president of the South American Association, the president of the Japanese Association, the president of the European Association was reporting to an Indian. So, yeah. To me, this was one of the greatest moments, and when I reflect back, I think what all happened at PGI is to a large extent responsible. So, how was that responsible? What did I learn at PGI? Of course, I think you learn several things. The most important thing for the resident is that you learn how to work hard, because when you come from different institutions all over the country, there are places where you can get away without doing much. You just walk through because of your brilliance and so on. But at PGI, that doesn't count. You have to work. The whole here whole training and healthcare is centered on patient. A patient-centric approach is something that becomes extremely important. And I think one of the most important aspects of PGI that's not realized is your peer group. All of you have entered into the new residency here would realize that your peers are the best in the country. You are not only one of the best in the country, but you're surrounded by people who are best in the country. So just imagine the osmotic knowledge that comes into you. And not only that, remember that for the rest of your life, your peer group is going to network with you. And this is going to be immense benefit. For me, one of the greatest benefits was interacting with my peer group, which I still do. Like Professor Vivek Lal has mentioned, with say Patrick Kamath. Whenever you talk with those groups of people, we realize what we are, what we have to do, and so on. So this is the greatest influence. Peer group influence, which is not very obvious, is the greatest influence that you can have. So develop good peer groups amongst yourself. This is going to help you throughout your life, not just now. And one of the important things I realized looking back at PGI was the responsible independence that we had. Just remember responsible independence. If you go to other institutes, for example, I remember at that time, Naudhanya Institute and all, people, the residents were spoon-fed, they were supposed to do something, not supposed to. Here it was totally different. Here in an emergency duty, as a senior resident, I could decide when to endoscope the patient, what form of therapy to give, and so on. It was this responsible independence that actually carried me through, and this is what will help you too. All of you as residents, as you enter into this hospital, will be given this responsibility. Utilize it properly, and this is something that is going to make you totally different from others coming from different institutions. Angela Duckworth, who was actually one of the Harvard geniuses, said this. I heard her once, who said that all good doctors have talent, effort, and skill. All of you in PGI are good doctors because you have the talent, you made the effort, you have the skills to come into PGI, enter into PGI. But what differentiates a good doctor from a successful doctor is the communication skills. It's ultimately your communication skills that are going to differentiate you from good people. So to be great or to be successful, you have to, and this is what again from PGI we get very unconsciously. All these presentations at the staff meeting, at the statistical meeting, and so on, always gives you these skills. There was something which always struck me. Why is it that some residents, when they pass out, do so well, some don't do so well? This is in PGI, if you look at what happens to the residents, 70 to 80% do well, but the 20% who don't do well. What separates these two groups of people? In fact, I remember, I think Rakesh will remember this, we had a resident, I won't name him, but it starts with the name R. R was outstandingly brilliant during our period. Among all of us, he would not study, he would not attend any class, he would come to the exam just like that in his shabby clothes, a beard, and then stand first. He would be socially inactive at a corner, reading by himself or just staying by himself, but always first. We thought he's going to be, this guy is brilliant, he's going to do outstandingly well, maybe get a Nobel Prize. But over the years, he slowly deteriorated. He's not to be seen, totally out of the scene. Why did this brilliant guy become like this? I didn't know the answer till I came across this very important study published by Raj Shetty in the Journal of Economics. What Raj Shetty is a brilliant economist at the Harvard, and he did a very interesting study. He studied people in the college who were studying in the college, and after 15 to 20 years saw who became successful. What were the characteristics that his professors found in him which made him successful? And he came to a very, very important conclusion, that it was not innate talent. It was not innate talent. So you can be brilliant, you can be very good. Obviously, if you are in PGI, you're very good. But it's these three things: discipline, determination, attitude. Discipline is something that you get, again, from PGI. You get this, you have to attend the 8 o'clock. I see that everybody is here at 8 o'clock. That is discipline. 8 o'clock sessions in the morning, dot on time, is what PGI teaches. I think every very session is to go absolutely dot on time. Determination is the hard work that we have to do at PGI, and then again, we're all forced into that. And most important is attitude. And by attitude, you mean your social attitudes, your ability to interact with others, network with others. The social networking, again, is very important. And those who do this as residents in PGI are the ones who do well ultimately. If you look back at this, PGI gives you all this automatically, even without realizing. You realize that you have got these three attitudes. And those who don't develop these three attitudes, PGI, remember, don't do well in life. This is a very important lesson that we learn. In fact, that's the reason why I suggest all of you as residents, if you can actually look at this book. It's called The Hidden Potential, how average or below average people can become outstanding just by realizing their potentials. This is a book that I strongly recommend all the residents to. You can get it over Amazon and read. So, okay, I told you all about what I learned, what I should have learned. It's probably partly my fault and partly the system at PGI which actually gets you out. And again, let me be very frank about this. One of the things that as residents we lack at PGI is the empathy for the patient. The reason, of course, is because we're all busy with the work. We have to get this thing done by evening rounds. You have to get all the reports ready. We're trying to impress the chief of the unit or the assistant professor who's doing the evening rounds that everything is ready. So we forget that this empathy is extremely important. And as you go to the outside world, the most important characteristic that as a clinical doctor we have or should have is empathy. And that's what makes a difference between a great doctor and a good doctor, empathy. Unfortunately, we don't have time, we don't have the system at PGI to develop this. This not only happens in PGI, it happens in all the institutions in the world. I've seen students at the Harvard Medical School, same thing. It's because you're so pushed with so much. They also, sometimes you have to develop a little detachment with the patient. Chronically ill patient who are very sick, you get emotionally attached, it becomes very difficult. So this aspect of when to have empathy and when to have detachment is something we're not taught here. And this is something you'll have to look at it carefully and see how you can. One of the things that also, unfortunately, that happens, I hope it doesn't happen to you, but it happened to me, is that when we pass out of PGI, we think we are best in the country, we are best. We become arrogant. We become extremely arrogant. And that's what, when I went back to the state, I was not only arrogant, I started arguing with everybody. I said, this professor of medicine doesn't know anything. This is the latest development, so on. This is something that you should see very carefully, work at not developing. Ultimately, again, having this opportunity to work with some of the best people in the world, not only in medicine, but in science, in sports, in art, and so on, I realized that the greatest quality of all those who have reached the height is humility. Having the ability to know that you don't know everything, there are some things that others are better at. And this is something that I would strongly recommend all of you to work at. It's not easy to develop. Being a resident at PGI naturally gives you that arrogance because you're the best. Kindly realize that there are better people outside the world, and that humility becomes extremely important. The other thing I didn't learn, partly again it's my fault, is the art of breaking news of a complication. Something happens, and in fact we brush off the patient and theek ho jayega, dekhenge theek ho jayega. Because we are all good, trained very well, but when it comes to communicating bad outcomes to the patient, we are not so good. And because, as David So said very clearly, no one will ask you why it happened. You will be judged by what you did in the aftermath, by the clarity of your thoughts, the communication, by your sincerity and empathy, the responsible response. Kindly start working on this. Again, for the residents, if you have a death after a procedure, patient, something happens, you take the responsibility, not the consultant. The resident, you as a resident, take the responsibility and see how you can interact, how you can improve your communication skills. Because communicating a bad news to the patient is the greatest art of communication in medicine. And if you master that, you've mastered a lot of what can happen in the outside world. There are three skills which I missed at PGI. Again, I would strongly recommend the director whether he can introduce this in the courses PGI. The three skills are people management, entrepreneurship, and money management. They were absolutely never taught to me at the PGI. Now, people management, what happens is when you finish your courses, either MD, DM, MCH, MS, or whatever, you go into the outside world, you automatically become a leader. You have to, it may be a small group, a large group, and so on. But you automatically become a leader, and we don't have skills of leadership taught here. For example, as a leader, sometimes you have to be strict, sometimes you have to be soft, Sometimes you have to be dismissive, you can't take all the complaints. Sometimes you have to be appreciative of your employees. Sometimes you have to be disconnected, and sometimes you have to have empathy. All these oxymoron words, you see, are something that as a leader, you start developing, and which we never have. I had to go partly to the Indian School of Business to learn some of these things, what leadership values are. The three most underused phrases as a leader are this, and we never thank, even in our group, you can see even in the departments, here also in PJ, we never thank other people enough. We never say, I'm sorry, but the most important lesson I learned is that whatever we do in our institution, I always ask everyone, what do you think? Take the opinion of others. What do you think? Sometimes you have to ask the smallest, sometimes you ask the security guard, sometimes you ask the nurse, and what do you think before you do something? And I think this is a very important lesson that I learned of listening. As a leader, you must be a good listener. Unless you're a good listener, you don't become a good leader. And this is something I never learned at PGI, how to be a good listener, because all the time you're telling people, do this, do that, and not. So I think this has become very important. The second important aspect of what you have to learn as you go into the outside is how to work with the team. In fact, I was having dinner once with Mr. Narayan Murthy, the president of Infosys, and I asked him a simple question. Can you tell me in a single sentence, how did you achieve what you achieved? He said, I don't require a sentence, I require a single word. And the single word was team. So whatever you do in outside life, you can't do it as a single person. It's a team that does it. You get the credit, but the team does it. Unless you have a good team, you can never do. And managing teams is not so easy, as we found out. At the AIG, we now have 6,500 employees. We have over 600 consultants, another 200 doctors, so huge team, and it took us a lot of learning to realize how to manage these teams. Of course, this resulted in a lot of accolades, which is again because of the team, more than 1,000 publication, textbook chapters, and so on. So I think it's very important to remember, like Henry Ford said, not only coming together, a team is important, but keeping together is progress, and working together is success. This is something to remember. Work together for long term, and for the residents who are now going to remember this, that not only do you build teams, get together, but also work for long for your success. There are three kinds of people as you go out into the world. You'll realize the people who make things happen, people who watch things happen, and people who wonder what happened. And among your classmates are going to be this. There'll be people who are going to make things happen, and these are the real doers. Of course, the others are going to watch what is happening. But try to be the first one. The person who makes things happen. You go to Panipat, a small village nearby, you're starting practice, but start thinking how you can make a change. Because we found in our team that the winner has a solution for every problem, the loser has a problem for every solution. So choose the winner. This is very important. So surround yourself with positive people. This is again, as you develop your peer groups, surround yourself with positive people. Those with negative emotions should either be told that or totally taken out of people. Now, the two other things that I missed during my PGI training was the art of entrepreneurship and money management. So one of the things in PGI, the dirty word was money. You shouldn't talk about money, because we used to criticize the doctors in Bombay for making so much money, doctors in Madras they used to come as visiting professors. They're all looked down upon because they're making money. Money was a dirty word. Too much money is not good, but money is not a dirty word. Money is also important in life. You should know what to do or how to in fact get money to make institutions. So I didn't know what to do when I was making a lot of money. I didn't know how to generate more money when I actually needed it for the institution. So this was something which I think you as a resident, I know that residents now are smarter. They tell me that they know everything. They're much better than what we were. And hopefully you are. But I think you should hone your skills on that. Because when I was starting the new institution, this was a 2,000 crore project. Where do I get the money? I didn't know anything. So we had, the options are to take a bank loan, but banks don't give so much money. The second option was to go to private equity people to take some money. How do you balance all this? I didn't know. The first thing the private equity person asked me was, what is your ALOS? What is your RPOP? I don't know how many know these words here, even the senior consultant. There's one chief financial officer, a CFO, he'll know it. ALOS was average length of stay in the hospital. RPOP was revenue per occupied bed. And these are indirectly related. If your ALOS is less, your RPOP is more. I didn't know that. The best institutions in the world, the Mayo Clinics and all, have an ALOS of 3.5 days. The best institutions in India have an ALOS of 5.5 days. So that means these people in Mayo have been wise to know how to generate more money per occupied. I didn't know anything of this. Again, I had to go to business school to learn some of these things. And it's very important that some of you who are going to go back, set up institutions and so on, kindly take courses in entrepreneurship, because this becomes very, very important. And I hope PGI is an opportunity to start some of these courses here. At least even a week, 1 week course of entrepreneurship or money management is sufficient to help all of you. Because I always thought private equity was bad, but they're actually the good ones. There can be very ugly ones who can swallow your pendant. You have to decide based upon the knowledge you have what to do with this. So what I would suggest to all of you is to set up these SMART goals, the residents, SMART. Now, what does this mean? First, it has to be specific. You decide specifically, okay, I want to complete my residency here. And then afterwards, if possible, I want to stay back because I'm very interested in what PGI is doing. Or if I go back to this particular place, start a practice. Or if you have a rich father-in-law, I'm going to start up a big hospital there in a native place. And so have specific goals. And second, it should be measurable. You can't suddenly tomorrow become, as I said, unless you have somebody who backs you up in that. Third, it has to be achievable. You can't, somebody working clinical medicine cannot aim to get a Nobel Prize in medicine, because that never happens. So it has to be achievable. It has to be realistic in terms of, and time-bound. Make these SMART goals. Think today what you're going to do after 3 years or 2 years after you complete the course. This becomes very important. And one of the things I learned from this man, Rajat Gupta, was actually the president of McKinsey. He's a very famous guy, unfortunately got into problems later on. And when he came as a patient, I asked, he was the only Indian who was the president of McKinsey. Huge achievement. I asked him, how did you achieve what you did? And he said something very important. He said, I always move the bar higher when I get to a comfort zone. This is a very important message. All of you are going to get into a comfort zone. The fact that you're a resident here is a comfort zone. You pass out, you're going to practice, you start doing well, you get a comfort zone. Think next. Don't settle at the comfort zone. You set up an institution, that's a comfort zone. Think next what you can do. Keep thinking, setting the bar at a higher level. And this is very, very important message that I received from you. There's another very important book that I read, Thinking Fast and Thinking Slow. As residents, this is again very important to know that if you look at our brain, again, it's a very crude example, Professor Vivek Lal, but our brain has got a central part, the old brain, which thinks very fast. Now, this is, in evolution, the lower animals have been given this because you see danger, you run. That's a fast thinking, the old brain. The neocortex that you see here is a new brain which thinks very rationally. What happens to residents is at times you go to your old brain, you get angry, you shout at people, you do this and all that. Exams, of course, you think rationally, but it's important that you transfer everything into new brain to be evolved in a new way. And this is an example I'll show you here. This is Professor Michael Burke, who was doing a ampulectomy, an endoscopic procedure to remove the ampulla tumor in a workshop. And you see he cuts this tumor, and this is through an endoscope, is cutting it, and as he's cutting the tumor, you can see the huge bleed that comes. We are told in the Gray's Anatomy that there are two large arteries in the ampulla, but I never saw it. The first time I saw this. So you can see it's bleeding, and then he doesn't panic. You look at his face, he's very calm. He's actually telling people what he should do next. The first thing he does is, for gastroenterologists understand this, that he goes to the left side near the pancreatic orifice, puts a clip not to burn the orifice, goes to the right side and puts a cautery to burn the vessels and controls the bleed. So he has converted his basic brain reactions to neocortex and is thinking rationally and doing it. That's what, as residents, you should all do. Convert all your basic instincts, except maybe hunger, eating, and so on, to your neocortex. Even that you have to manage as a resident. You know, sometimes it's late night, you don't get food. I don't know, we used to have a dhaba outside earlier. I don't know if it's there still, but so these are some of the things you should do. Convert all your basic instinct into a neocortex. One of the things that's again going to happen to you as residents here is because of the large amount of work, you may be coming from institutions where you haven't worked so hard, is the so-called burnout syndrome. I didn't realize about this burnout syndrome till I saw a large number of practicing gastroenterologists. getting at 40 or 50 years saying, I've had enough. One of our colleagues again, Rakesh will know, at 55 years said, I had enough. Stop practice, just take off everything. So this is very important to avoid this burnout syndrome amongst you. And the way to avoid, you have to work hard. But the way to avoid your burnout syndrome is to enjoy what you're doing, working hard. And I'll tell you an example. For example, I'm an endoscopist, and of course, in the morning to doing endoscopy, but I enjoy doing this because what I see on the screen is not just these, but I see a lot of other things also. So every patient whom you talk to has got something interesting. Just listen to the stories of these patients. You just only don't say, where's your pain, where's this thing and all. Go to the background, what are their children doing, what are their parents doing, and so on. You get a lot of interesting stories. Convert your work day into an enjoyable day. There's so many movies to see, so many stories to listen to, and it becomes a very enjoyable period for you. This is very important. And of course, you can also spend part of it socializing with your colleagues, gossiping, that also is part of your. So these are all things that you learn. So let's say that success is not an accident, it's a result of an attitude. Remember this, it's a result of attitude. If you think you can, you can. If you think tomorrow I go back, I'm going to be a very successful practitioner, or going to build institutions, you can. If you think you cannot, you cannot. You say, okay, I cannot, then you just where you are. Either way you're right, but remember to go the first way. It's an attitude that is very important for all of you. So, we did something a few years back. Some of our old gastro residents who passed out sat together and then looked at who are the successful people, who are not successful. Majority were successful, there were some were not. And then we came out with this interesting concept that actually if you look at residents, when you join as resident PJ, all of us are nearly same, above average or slightly maybe average, because to get into PJ you have to be definitely above average. But subsequently what happens is some are very successful in their careers and what they do. Some remain same, they don't change much, they remain same. There are some who dramatically dip down, who don't do well in life at all, small percentage. And what we found when we analyzed was it's actually the first 5 years after your residency that determines what happens to you. In the first 5 years, if you decide that you're going to upgrade your skills, you're going to continuously work on it, have the right attitude, have the right networking, you do well. If you don't, then you don't do well. This is very important. So remember, this is not the end of your training. Your training finishes maybe after 3 years, but the next 5 years are going to be the ones which determine what you do in life. And remember that these are very important, because what is going to happen is that all of you, in addition to the fact that you're privileged to be a part of PGI training, are going to have luck and opportunities at coming to you. Like I had this opportunity of seeing the CM's wife, opportunity of getting land from the government. All these were serendipity, opportunities, or luck. It's important not to reject this, but to grab this. You can react, think about it, and grab these opportunities. Don't miss this opportunity. Because ultimately, the final result is an equation of the opportunity you're presented with and the opportunities that you take, you grab together. This is what is going to finally decide. So I think this is an important lesson. So the secrets to success as you pass out of this residency is, of course, a combination. I think this is not given enough importance. Serendipity and luck is extremely important part of your life. This is something you couldn't control, but everybody has a small window coming in. You don't realize this window, but if you look carefully, you will have a small window when you get out of into the outer world. You have to work hard, but do it in a smart way, because only then you can work hard. Otherwise, you get burnout. And finally, I think it's a team and communication. How you build up your teams, how you collaborate with others, that is going to determine what you do in life. So this is important. And finally, before I end, I want to leave you with this important concept, the concept of glass ball and the rubber ball. Now, glass ball is like your career. It's like your work. You may sometimes, go to a place, not do well. Remember that failure is never final. If failure gives you an opportunity to think again. Always beside the main road is a small side lane which you can take if you fail. And then you get into the highway again. So failure actually is an opportunity. So your work can go change, or you may fail, but it always comes back like a rubber ball. But family, friends, and health is like a glass ball. You drop it, it'll never come back again. people accuse me, you say this, but you never paid attention to your family and so on. How can it is not how much time you spend with them, but the quality of time you spend with them. This is the equation you draw with your families. Each of you, as you finish your residence, and even during residency, you have to draw a line, talk to your family, how much of time you can give, what quality of time you can develop a very healthy, positive group of friends. And remember, we as doctors, especially as residents, give a lot of advice to patients on healthy lifestyles and so on, but never follow it because we say we don't have time. That's wrong. Because the glass ball, once it's broken, will never come back. Remember this. And again, once again, I'd like to thank the director, the administration for giving me this honor and privilege of being here in front of you. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you.
I think we all are speechless. Thank you, Dr. Reddy, for sharing your wisdom. Your journey will undoubtedly motivate residents to reach greater heights. We wish you continued success and vigor in all your endeavors. To express our sincere gratitude and as a token of remembrance, may I request Professor Vivek Lal to felicitate our revered chief guest. Other dignitaries on the dais to join, please. The root of all goodness lies in the soil of appreciation. May I call upon Professor Naresh Panda, Dean Academics, to propose a vote of thanks.
Professor Nageshwar Reddy, the chief guest for this function, Professor Vivek Lal, Director PGI, Professor R.K. Ratho, Sub-Dean Research, Mr. Pankaj Rai, IAS, Deputy Director Administration, Mr. Varun Ahluwalia, our Financial Advisor, Mr. Umed Mathur, the Registrar, former Directors, Deans, faculty members, and dear residents. What an inspirational speech, sir. It was spellbound, and I'm sure your inspirational words in the last half an hour, I can say, would produce more Nageshwar Reddys in future. We know about your achievements. You're one of the most distinguished gastroenterologists, not only in the country, but in the world. In fact, I have attended one of your sessions in the International College of Surgeons where you were talking about a banding technique in the year 2002 for patients who are on long-term proton pump inhibitors. That is your level and your achievement, sir, and we are really proud of as one of the distinguished alumnus of PGI. Thank you very much for having made it here. It's really worthy, sir. The new residents, congratulations to all of you. As you heard, you have passed one of the toughest hurdles, that is getting a post-graduation seat. But the next 3 years for you, it's going to be fiery, it will be hard work, it is baptism by fire. So you have come from different backgrounds, you have different surroundings from where you came, but your peers here, as Sir just said, are going to be really helpful to you and doing your tough residency for the next 3 years. All the best and congratulations for having come to this institution. Thanks to our former torchbearers, former faculty members, former directors, former deans, who remind us about our rich heritage and tradition. Thank you, sir, for leading us even when you are not in the scene. Our faculty members deserve accolades because they lead by example and imbibe good values and work ethos to the residents, which go a long way in shaping their career. I would like to thank the members of the Institute Function Committee who toiled very hard to bring this function, this program to you. Thanks to all of you to have come in this foggy, cold January morning. Thank you very much. Jai Hind.
Thank you, sir. May I request everyone to kindly rise for the national anthem. Kindly join us for tea in the lawns adjoining the Bhargav Auditorium. The residents of December 2023 and January 2024 batches may kindly collect in front of Karam Block for a group photograph at 9:30 a.m. Thank you.